Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Well, Donna Adelson took the stand today, not once, but twice during a hearing. And it was every bit as dramatic as you would think it would be when Donna Adelson takes the stand. She told us about two, not one, but two jailhouse attacks. Her attorney and she explained why she should be out on bond, which is a pretty tall order considering she was arrested at the airport on her way to Vietnam, which she had carefully researched to be sure was a country that does not have an extradition treaty with the United States. So, what's Donna's argument? Does she have a chance? Also, Donna Adelson gave us her explanation for why she was not trying to flee the country when she was searching for a non-extradition country. I'll give you a hint. It's Harvey's fault. I'm going to play it for you and let you decide for yourself what you think. How did it come out? Do you believe her? We're even going to do a poll. Yes, that's right. I think I finally figured out how to do polls. And she is arguing, Donna Adelson is arguing, that the state should not be allowed to use two very problematic telephone recordings of her talking. She had been on the phone with Charlie, her son, in jail when the call dropped. At least that's what she thought. But although Charlie was off the call, it was still connected, and the jail's machine was recording what Donna said to people in the room around her. And the recording captured Donna saying some things she would really rather the jury not hear. Plus, we got a huge clue that Donna Adelson may actually testify at trial. Now, how would that go? What do you think about that? So it's a very important video in the Donna Adelson case tonight, covering a lot of new information we got today. And we are barreling toward Donna's trial. Her case management conference is in March, her pretrial on May 16th, and trial is set for June 3rd in her case. So I want to start today talking about there were two different hearings that happened today, an Arthur hearing and a bond hearing. Now, the first hearing related to the phone conversations that were taped of Donna Adelson after she thought the call to Charlie in the jail had disconnected. And now and here, I'm going to move this down here. Sorry, I'm getting confused. So the Arthur hearing related to these phone calls and to her argument that really shouldn't be anything that the jury is allowed to hear because she didn't give consent for the jail to have actually recorded these conversations. So I've been having trouble with, oh, thank goodness. It finally rendered. I was hoping it would. I had a workaround if it didn't render, but fortunately, I think it is all the way rendered. So I'm going to remove my workaround, and I will now share the other version that I think will be a better workaround. Let me know about the sound on this. So hopefully it will be fine. This is Donna Adelson testifying at trial today.
Not trial. Looking it up over and over. If things change, if there is extradition from Vietnam, because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition. To have all this information, I have the cemetery property. I want her to see all that. I want her to have all these papers and the wills. I want her to see all this.
As the call was happening, do you know at what point?
Let me stop it quick. So, okay, you just heard a little clip from one of the jail calls that they want to use. They played these at the hearing today, but I thought they were just unintelligible. I didn't think you could even begin to hear them. Oh, I should double check. Yes, okay, good. So these are conversations that she had with Charlie. She started off with that. She's now talking to her husband, Harvey. She thinks the phone is not recording. She thinks she's disconnected from the jail call. She knows that jail calls with Charlie are going to be recorded, but she doesn't realize that the jail is still recording her call, that she has not actually hung up the call, and that she is now being recorded talking to Harvey in the room. Not just Harvey, but also to apparently two other people, one of whom was an attorney and one of whom was the husband of the attorney. And what she's talking about in this is she's talking about looking for extradition, a non-extradition country like Vietnam. That's the reason they were looking for that particular country. She's going to give you an explanation for that later. So these calls that they played, I thought were unintelligible. One was from November 7th, about 3 p.m., the other from November 8th. Both of them, the call failed to disconnect. And the result was, and I'm going to change the format of that. So the result was it kept recording. Donna Adelson is recorded and had no idea this was going to happen. She says, well, I agreed to you recording the phone call with Charlie, but I didn't agree to you recording me in my living room, talking to my husband, talking to my attorney, and talking to the husband of my attorney. I never agreed to that. So so that is one of the conversations that they were talking about. And she talked about the fact that that'll be easier for me so I can be a little faster with this for you. So we'll go ahead and hear a little bit more.
Charlie was no longer on the call?
No, only when I was talking, and then all of a sudden I asked him something and I said, Charlie, do you hear me, Charlie? And I said it a few times and he didn't respond anymore. And I knew the call was over.
Now, in the course, during the time that your son was incarcerated in Leon County Jail, did that happen more than, was that a frequent occurrence?
Yeah, it happens. It happens a lot, unfortunately.
Okay. And would there be times when you didn't realize at first that he was no longer on the call?
Yes, if he didn't respond anymore, that was it. The call was over.
What would you do with your phone?
I'd hang up.
In both of the situations, did you believe the call was over?
Yeah, the call was over. He was gone.
And you went about your business?
Yes.
Now, so the defense argument is Donna never agreed to this recording. So the state can't use it. The state can't make the argument that she agreed as she did to the phone call with Charlie, because this is no longer the phone call with Charlie.
Now, with respect to the November 7th, 2023 phone call when your attorney, her husband, and your husband were present at your apartment, did you agree for your attorney-client conversation to be recorded?
No.
Did you agree for your conversation with your husband to be recorded?
No, of course not.
Now, the following day, did you agree for your subsequent conversation with your husband to be recorded?
No.
The consent that you gave for the call to be recorded, when did that end?
It ended when Charlie hung up, or whatever stopped the call. I mean, I don't know how it stopped, but it stopped. When the call was over with Charlie.
So why do they mention, you may be wondering, why mention the attorney and the husband, and why mention specifically that Harvey is her husband? The reason is because they're pointing out potential privileges under the law and saying this was a privileged communication between Donna and her husband, Harvey, or between Donna and her attorney. Now, there is a little bit of a problem with that. The prosecutor later said, now, was the husband of the attorney present? Yes. Is he an attorney? No. And the reason for that questioning is, if somebody who is not an attorney or doesn't have a privilege gets thrown into the middle of it, it's no longer privileged. That means it's no longer protected by laws that protect certain types of conversations. Husband, wife, spouse privilege would protect conversations. And of course, the attorney-client would protect that as well. So the state is suggesting, well, this isn't really protected because you've got a non-attorney in the middle of it. Now, there may still be the argument that she hasn't given consent, but the state is saying the attorney-client privilege, that's not going to apply because there was a non-attorney right there in the middle of this. So the state argued that the problem is that Donna didn't actually hang up the call. That's not the state's fault. They said we aren't acting to try to get this phone conversation. Instead, she just failed to hang up. That was her responsibility. She messed up.
Typically do hang up your calls, you said, after
I think I
your
did,
call
yeah.
with Charlie Adelson when he was in custody. All right, but this particular call that day, evidently you did not properly hang up, right?
Evidently.
In my view, this is a pretty strong point for Donna Adelson because the phone call warning from the jail telling you that the phone conversation is about to be recorded says that you're receiving a call from an incarcerated individual, that this call is not private. It will be recorded and may be monitored. If you believe this should be a private call, please hang up, follow facility instructions to register this number as a private number. To accept charges and consent to this recorded call, press 1. To refuse, press 2. Thank you for using Securus, which is the name of the system. You may start the conversation now. So I do not believe she's going to win on this issue. The judge has so far ruled pretty much down the line with the prosecution side. I don't believe she's going to win on this, but I do think she has a good argument about these particular calls and about the question of whether she actually consented to that. I think consent was revoked. That would be my thinking on what exactly happened when she thinks she's hung up, but she hasn't. And the reason I think that is because all of the circumstances, like Charlie is off the phone, no longer able to hear her, he's disconnected, he's trying repeatedly to call her back and he can't get through. And they think maybe because his pen was still being used on the former call. But I think for those reasons, I think that she had every reason to believe the call had been ended. So that would just be kind of my thinking on it. But I imagine that the judge will rule in the prosecution's side. So the second argument that was made is that Donna ought to be allowed out of jail on bond. Now, she's been in prison 470 days. She's currently housed in an annex because the primary prison area where she had been housed before, detention center, I should say, is under construction. So here's what she said about her housing.
The annex is kind of a temporary type building. It's not a brick building. It's kind of like a temporary building, and it's and there are 66 women, all in bunk beds, all open. You're kind of one on top of the next. There's no separation at all.
So one big open room.
One big open room with tingling. It almost feels like.
So she's currently actually not in that main area. She's in solitary because of complaints of assaults from other inmates. She's talked about pain in her arm. That was one of the things she testified to today from an assault by another inmate.
Ants are crawling on them. It's like a numbness of those fingers.
Okay. And is this pain that you were experiencing prior to your incarceration at Leon County Jail?
No.
Okay. About when did this pain begin?
So I was assaulted by another inmate while I was here at the beginning of October.
October 2024?
Yes.
And when you say here, do you mean the Leon County Jail?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Since you began experiencing that pain, since October of 2024, have you requested medical treatment?
Yes.
And what has the response been?
They said they would take an x-ray, but in the meantime, I could have Tylenol.
Did they do an x-ray on your arm?
Yes.
And when was that?
It might have been February 3rd. No, that's the day I moved. It's shortly after February 3rd. I don't know the date.
Was it after you were removed and placed in protective custody?
Yes, it was. X-ray showed no fracture.
Now, she finally got an x-ray, she's saying, but not until February. And the incident happened in October. So Adelson's team, I think, is suggesting here that maybe the only reason she's getting medical treatment, certainly that it's slow, that it's not very good medical treatment. They talked about that throughout. But they're also kind of suggesting that maybe the only reason she's getting treatment now is because of her complaints. And so they decided, whoa, we better take care of this lady quick. And she mentioned several medical issues. But honestly, given that she's 75, they're pretty remarkably minor.
Evidently have very narrow ear canals, and so the wax builds up in my ears to the point that, I have officers that say to me, "Are you deaf, Adelson?" When I don't respond to them, it's because I don't hear them. And so I did ask for help I asked the doctor if there was anything they could do for me, and I told her what's normally done. And I said, that doesn't work. I need a different procedure. And she said, that's all we can do for you.
So before she was incarcerated, she explained that she was regularly treated by a doctor every 3 to 4 months, having this wax buildup removed. and they used an electronic device that other procedures just won't work for her. The doctor at the detention center said, well, the prison could give her regular, ordinary treatments for this, but they couldn't use that electronic device. And she said it worked, and it was the only thing that worked. So that is one of her arguments for why she ought to get out of jail right now and be able to prepare for her case from a home or separate setting. She argued that her hearing trouble is actually affecting her ability to prepare for the case.
In the course of the time that you have met with counsel at the jail, have you had difficulty hearing us while we're trying to discuss your case with us?
Yes.
And what about over the telephone? Are you experiencing difficulty hearing us in that way?
Yeah, the telephone is a problem.
Have you actually gotten in trouble by some of the guards at the jail because they've instructed you to do something and you weren't able to hear them?
Yes.
And have you experienced over the course of your incarceration that your hearing is getting worse and worse?
Oh, yeah.
So typically, if an inmate is requesting to get out on bond for medical reasons, it would be something more significant, something like cancer or some kind of treatment that would need very advanced treatment. And so this is obviously sort of in a different category. You'll hear at the end, her attorney put this all together and frankly did a really good job. I'll play that for you too. You'll be intrigued to hear what their argument is. So Donna Adelson then tells the court a very long story about how she cut her arm on a washing machine walking by it, and she couldn't get a Band-Aid. She had to fill out a form, except they were out of forms. So here's just a little snippet of the story.
Why don't you use your toilet paper and put it on there? I said, but it's gushing. I can't put toilet paper on there. So one of the girls saw me and she said, oh my God. And she came running over and she opens up a sanitary napkin and she put it on there so that it was filling the sanitary napkin with blood. And so another girl came over, she took the bloodied one away and she gave me hers too. And I was applying that. So I said to the nurse again, I'm not going to be able to stop it holding this. Isn't there something you can do? She says, the best I could offer you would be to fill out a medical request form. So I said, want me to do that now? She said, yes. I said, okay, can I have a medical request form? She says, oh, I don't have any. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And she said, I don't know what to tell you.
Going on.
So it did remind me of sort of any kind of time that you interact with an insurance company or something like that. But in this particular case, her argument was they don't have facilities to care for you. But of course, getting cut, as the prosecutor pointed out, is something that could happen on the inside or the outside. It isn't necessarily related to incarceration. But Donna's argument is they should have had supplies that would enable her to be cared for, and her lack of ability to get that. They mentioned that this was a small point, but they wanted the court to understand the difficulties she was having. Donna also complained about shortness of breath and heavy breathing that she had been having for about 3 months, to the point where her attorney said it was difficult to understand her. Donna said that guards, inmates talked about the fact that she was having so much trouble breathing.
It's been going on several months, probably at least 3 months, I would think.
Did you have it prior to being incarcerated?
No, I did not.
Now, it will shock you to hear that Donna Adelson also does not like the food in jail. So I'm sure that will surprise you. But she did say that she was not a fan. She thinks the food is terrible. Here's what she had to say about the food.
More than a third of my body weight here. The diet is all carbs, no protein. And when you get spaghetti with mashed potatoes, cornbread, and white bread, that's your dinner. That's very typical of what we get. And we have had no exercise at all. We're confined, especially in the annex. The annex, we've been confined to our beds almost all the time. Once in a while, we get a pod officer that lets us walk, so you can walk in a circle around the girls' beds. But otherwise, there's no. I mean, even if you want to get off your bed and just try to do stretches or wall push-ups or anything, she says this is not an exercise room. There's no exercising here. The inmate handbook says you get a minimum of 3 hours of outside time per week.
Okay. And during your time in the annex, did you experience a week where you got 3 hours of time outside?
We haven't gotten 3 hours in 6 months.
So I laugh because it does kind of resemble my life, eating spaghetti, mashed potatoes, and not exercising. So I don't know. She must have been doing a lot better than I am before she went into incarceration. So it does seem a little bizarre that they don't let you exercise just standing in place in the cell, but that does seem really strange, particularly now that she's in isolation. It would seem like, why would it even bother anybody else? So I don't know whether, anyway, that's the story that she gave. She also talked about these two incidents that she says occurred in the jail where she was actually attacked by another inmate. The first one is a shower incident. Here's what she says happened.
The first incident that took place in the shower, could you just briefly describe to the judge what happened there?
I was under the shower and I was washing my hair, and I was the only one in the shower. I always go in early morning because there's nobody there. Most of the girls sleep, so I take a shower and I have a little privacy. And so I was washing my hair, and all of a sudden I felt a hand go up my back, like from the top of my butt up my back, and I yelled, "Stop it!" And I turned, and this girl said, "You like it?" And I said, "Get out of here!" And I started to scream when she ran. I went into brush.
So the incident ultimately ended up with no harm then to Donna Adelson, in that nothing actually occurred. Apparently the girl ran and there were no physical injuries or anything like that to report. Unlike at this next attack that we're going to talk about, that Donna Adelson says occurred in October of 2024. Now, Donna did not mention this to anyone until the past month. And that is one of the prosecution arguments, is that this had really happened, you'd have mentioned it sooner than that.
Brushed my teeth. He came up behind me and pulled my left hand away from the sink and twisted my arm and like jerked it behind my back, like reaching up toward my neck.
Okay.
And
Did it hurt?
Yeah, it hurt.
Okay, what happened?
It hurt. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she's, in the same breath that she did that with my arm, she said, "You're going to buy me commissary." I said, "I'm going to what?" And she said, "Unless you want those pretty white teeth knocked out of your mouth, you're going to buy me commissary." So I said, okay. And then she named a package that she wanted.
And how bad would you rate the pain at the time that she did that to you?
Oh my God, it was a 10.
Okay.
I didn't know my arm could reach that far back.
Okay. And what did you do after she did that to you?
So kind of stood there for a minute, and then I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go back to my bunk. And I went back to my bunk and I got into the covers and I cried. Just stayed under my covers.
Why don't you want to disclose who it was?
There's one thing I've learned since I'm there is you don't, and the word is snitch, you don't tell on anyone because you'll be sorry you did. She's a big woman, and I was afraid of her.
Okay. Approximately how tall would you say she is compared to you?
So for 6 feet, over 200 pounds, she's a very large woman.
So Donna followed up on this by getting her husband Harvey to order these packages for the woman she says threatened her at a cost of about $50 per week. They were not from the commissary. They were packages that got delivered. And so she says she actually followed through.
I called my husband. I didn't tell him what happened. I just called him and said, "Honey, I want some extra food. Would you mind ordering some packages for me?" And he said, "Sure, honey." I would load these things in the top of my shirt, and I would hold the bottom of my shirt like this so that nothing would fall out. And I'd go to the bathroom, and then somebody would follow me in there, and she would take it out, transfer it into her shirt, and walk away.
So this pattern ended when Donna was sent to solitary because of these complaints. So she finally mentioned in the past month that this had happened to her. She's now put in solitary because of it, but she still ended up with the last batch, that box of things that got sent that she never has been able to pass along. And they're actually in her cell, she said.
I don't eat that stuff, so it's all sitting on top of my bunk.
It's made up of noodles and chips and things of that nature. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But you do
Party in Donna's cell. I mean, that sounds like the good stuff. I'm not sure why she isn't eating that. The prosecution at this point asked if Donna would give the name, then if only she would do that, the jail could protect Donna by putting that person away from her. Instead, they've had to put Donna into solitary. And the only reason for that is that Donna won't give them the name. They could take action against the person who's at fault, but they can only do that if Donna actually will reveal the name of it. So Donna has agreed to do that in camera just to the judge, but she won't do it in any other way.
Do you know that if you would give her name, that instead of you being separated from the pod, she could be separated from you and you could be back with the general population?
Yeah, but she's not the only one that could hurt me. That's why I wouldn't do it. She had a half a dozen girls that came up to me.
Was there ever any physical violence by her or anyone she's friends with after that October 24 incident?
No, that was it.
But
so as it is, Donna is rarely allowed out of her room. She said it's very limited. She's only allowed on certain days, certain periods of time. Here, she'll describe to you what she's allowed.
You're allowed to come out of that room 1 hour per day on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you get to come out for 20 minutes. Is that
20
right?
minutes.
Okay. And on the weekends, you don't get to come
Not
out?
at all.
Okay. Make sure you don't talk over me. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're talking over each other.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So Saturday and Sunday, you don't come out at all. During your hour, 3 days a week, and your 20 minutes, 2 days a week, is that when you are given the opportunity to take a shower?
Yes.
If you have time to walk, that's when you walk?
So on an hour day, I'll walk for 40 minutes or about, and then I'll take my shower at the end of that.
And laundry also. Okay. And
So Donna also complained that she's not getting her good sleep in jail, that she takes nighttime meds that are supposed to help her fall asleep, but they don't even get those to her until 11:30 to 1:30, 11:30 to 1:30 in the morning range. And then they wake her up at 3 to 3:30 when they deliver breakfast. And that's not enough for her. She is not able to go back to sleep.
And once you're woken up for breakfast, are you capable of going back to sleep?
No.
Have you tried to go back to sleep?
Oh my God. Yes, I tried.
How has that affected you?
So, listen, I know older people don't need as much sleep as younger people, but I need more than 2 hours a night. I need more than a good night is 3. One night I had 3.5 hours. It's not enough sleep to stay focused. People screaming and yelling. They bang on the doors. They shake the doors. It sounds like a drum in there. It's horrible. So I can't sleep with all that noise going on.
Are you having difficulty?
So I just am so curious. I'm going to head over into the chat. How many of you believe that the problems that Donna Adelson has mentioned so far are very serious, extremely serious, would justify her getting out on bond? If you're hearing it, put a 1 in the chat. I'm curious. I can't wait any longer. I have to know what y'all think. And then if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't know that it's, I'm not really sure that this is enough to get out on bond, put a 2 in the chat. So I'm looking for 1 means you think this is really serious. She ought to get out on bond. 2, this is not even close. 5, Patrick is a 5. Not following directions, but I get your point, Patrick. All right. So we are getting a lot of 2s, multiple 2s from Marlon. We have a few 1s, people thinking this sounds pretty serious. We have some 2s. I would say we're heavily on the 2 side. I should have done this as a poll, but I've already got the other poll ready. So maybe I'll do it at the end. Maybe we'll come back to it. Okay, I was curious about that. I need to say hi to Gina Gilmore too. It's been a member for 5 months. That is awesome. We are so glad to have you, Gina. All right, so the argument that her attorneys are making is that it's really affecting the ability for her to be able to prepare for trial. That's the touchstone for the court. That's what the court has to be concerned about if she truly can't get ready for trial. So, and they're saying it's very hard to talk to her. They aren't given full time in the jail because they have to share that with other attorneys who also need to consult. And phone calls are apparently very difficult.
Completing the tasks that we're asking you to do because of your lack of sleep?
Yes.
And during the time that you and I are having conversations, do you also experience the same kind of problems with the phone that you had heard that Charlie had while talking to you, where the calls are dropped, et cetera?
We've had it numerous times.
Okay. Are there times where we're not able to hear each other on phone calls?
Yes.
Is there static on the phone calls?
It's static. And now you've been complaining because I have this shortness of breath. So you say I'm breathing very heavy and it's hard to hear me.
So Donna does promise, if the court will let me out, I will be a very, very good girl. I will stay put. I'll do all these strict things, like I won't leave the house and I'll wear a monitor and I'll only go out for meetings with my attorneys or to get medical care. I will even stay in Leon County, which is pretty big for her because we have heard recordings and so forth of how she really feels about the people in Tallahassee. So that's actually concession on her part. Now, one of the witnesses testified that she told the jail medical personnel that her shoulder pain was mild. As soon as the guy said that, I thought, I do not believe you. I think that is incorrectly written down on that because there is zero way, in my opinion, that Donna Adelson came in and told medical personnel, yeah, I've got just a little something. My shoulder bothering me. I don't think it's anything. I just came in to see what you thought. I just don't think that happens with Donna Adelson. And sure enough, when the prosecutor tried to use this medical record, Donna Adelson had words.
For your arm and shoulder pain, isn't it true that you reported you had mild pain in your left arm and
No,
shoulder?
I heard that gentleman say that before. I couldn't believe it. I told you that I had severe burning pain down the outer part of my arm. I never used the word mild pain. I don't know where they got that from, but that's not what I said.
I'm going to show you the encounter from February 3rd, 2025 at 2:29 p.m. Under musculoskeletal, does it say positive for left upper extremity limited ROM range of motion, comma, mild pain?
That's what it says, but that's not what I said. No way is that pain mild.
And so that's just what the doctor would have written down, but you're saying that's not what you told the doctor?
I'm telling you, I never said mild pain.
Okay.
It's shooting hot pain down my arm.
So I completely believe her on that one. That's my opinion. I don't think she ever said mild pain or said it's a 3 on a scale of 10. I just don't think that fits with the rest of the way she talks or her personality. So now I want to get to the part that I told you we would be talking about from the beginning. What Donna Adelson says about that all important fact about whether she was trying to flee for Vietnam. That is so important. It has some very important connotations around whether or not maybe she was admitting guilt by the fact that she was trying to flee the country. It has some important connotations around whether or not she believed that she was about to be arrested, and if so, was taking action to get away from that. There's even a charge related to that. So I wanted you to hear in her own words what she says about her being arrested at the airport, about the country she had chosen to go to, everything she said about it. I've cut it just very little because I thought I wanted you to hear it. It's a couple of minutes, I think.
My husband and I literally shocked and traumatized at what had happened to Charlie. And he said, we need to just get some peace. We need to catch our breath. We're going to go away somewhere. And I thought it was a good idea because I couldn't think straight. I really couldn't think straight. I was so upset, and so was he. And it was his idea. He said, sweetheart, let's go, just get away. We're going to just get away somewhere so we could have some time to think.
Okay, so your testimony is that you weren't trying to go to Vietnam because you wouldn't be able to be extradited from there.
So my husband actually had said, we've been to Vietnam before with friends, we're on vacation, and it really was like a place of peace. And so he said, if we go to a non-extradition country, then if the law enforcement decided that they wanted to arrest you or me, whatever, both, he said, we won't be sitting in a foreign prison waiting months to go back. We could buy a ticket and we can go home. And my understanding was that I could go home and I could turn myself in if that's what they wanted.
Okay, but you were hoping to make it out of America in time before you were arrested, right?
I wanted to get away. He wanted to get away. That's what we wanted to do. And we spoke to our attorneys. I asked them, they said there's no pending. We purposely called them to make sure it was legal to do it. And they said there's no, what were their words? There's no pending charges and there's no warrants. So you want to go. And so
you were specifically looking, though, for countries that did not have extradition with the U.S.
For the reason I just told you.
Right. And the reason that you're saying that you were looking for countries with no extradition was so that you could get back faster in order to be arrested in the US.
No, that's not what I said. It's because, I don't know, maybe we watch too much TV or too many movies, but I've seen movies where people are stuck in like third world prisons and waiting and waiting and waiting. And my feeling was, this is not what we want to happen. If the state says they want us to come back, we'll buy a ticket, we'll come back on our own terms. We don't have to be sitting in a jail somewhere. We'll come back home and turn ourselves in.
Couldn't you have done that no matter what country you went to?
No, I'm not in law enforcement, but it appears that they would notify law enforcement in that country, and then they could hold you in a jail for God knows how long. And I don't want that to happen. So he said, well, that's why we'll do it this way, honey. That way, if they do notify us, so we got a phone call from our attorney or from law enforcement, then we'll buy a ticket, we'll go home.
Okay.
And so it would have been on our terms. That was the point. That was the reason that he thought that was a good idea.
Nobody's
Okay, so we are going to try our poll now. All right, let's see. Let me know if it works. So hopefully you will actually get the poll and you can vote on this and let me know your thoughts on what you just heard. This is probably a trial run of what Donna will actually testify to when trial comes around. So I think that this is the basic explanation she's going to give for her attempt to go to Vietnam. Now, I will say that the state gave an explanation of what the evidence was against Donna. And I'm going to say it's not a ton of evidence. It's light evidence. This is going to be one of the pieces they want to put in. So whether or not it's effective is going to matter. Her attorney gave an absolutely excellent closing argument. I was really impressed with the attorney's argument and how she did. Her argument was that the reason Donna ought to get out on bond, first of all, they shouldn't be afraid that she's going to run, but there will be enough safeguards in place that it would be impossible to happen. She won't have a passport. She won't have a visa. She won't be able to leave the country. But the reason to let her out is sort of a conglomeration of things, and you're going to hear her put it all together.
complaining about the fact that she's not getting food that she doesn't like. She's gained a third of her.
She's saying the first word that kind of got written over was nobody. It was in the last thing. Nobody's complaining about the fact that she's not getting food that she doesn't like.
Body weight. They can't protect her in the jail. They've testified themselves. There are no cameras inside the area where they use the restroom, the area where they take the shower, where these washing machines are. There are no guards in there. There's no video in there. So if she disclosed the name, which she's willing to do in camera to the court with nobody else present, because she knows she's going to be retaliated against, they can't protect her from retaliation. If they put her back in the annex and some girlfriends or friends of this woman that she rats out finds out that she's back in there, they can take her down in the bathroom, and the guards who are sitting behind a glass being protected themselves aren't even going to know what's happening until it's too late. What we have before us is a woman who's 75 years old. She's elderly. She's on trial for her life in a town where everybody believes she's guilty. That for 10 years, it's been the same story, that the mafia mother has planned out this homicide and had Dan Markel killed on this evidence that could be consistent with, and that's not what we have. We can't prepare her for trial under these circumstances. If she remains in the jail, we simply cannot have her prepared to testify and assist with preparation of her defense.
And that's the touchstone that really matters to the judge. Can she prepare for her defense? That's her constitutional right. So that's where he has to be worried. We got, if you heard that last little sentence there, we got a huge clue that Donna Adelson may testify at trial. What the attorney said was, if she remains in the jail, we simply cannot have her prepared to testify and assist with preparation of her defense. Clue. I think that may mean that she is likely to testify at trial. We don't know for sure. She doesn't have to. It's her right not to testify at trial. But they apparently want to prepare her to do that. And we will see whether she actually ends up testifying or not. That is, I think, an effective argument because the judge does have a responsibility to prepare her for trial. All right. So I am going to, I think we can go ahead and end the poll. 91% of you believe that she was trying to flee the country. So that seems like a fairly high percentage to me. All right, so let's keep going with the attorney's argument, which, as I say, I thought was really
I
good.
cannot have an attorney-client privilege call with her there. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. This phone system that they have, they say that's not recorded and we get cut off. She has this labored breathing. I have to start yelling to have her to stop talking because she's breathing so loud. I can't hear a thing she's even saying.
Now, the next point is really interesting because the attorney is going to say that the prosecution told Donna through a roundabout way, an investigator told a friend, told Donna, something like that, that it would be okay for Donna to leave the country. That would be huge if that's the case. If the prosecution sent word that it would be okay, then it really would be inappropriate for them to use the fact that she was trying to leave the country if they told her it would be fine for her to do that. But the judge points out that the defense has absolutely no evidence about this. They just are talking about it. And you'll hear the defense attorney say, well, the state knows this. And interestingly, the state did not get up and say, no, we don't, Judge. We don't know what she's talking about. We don't know anything about that. So I don't know. I don't know what the truth is in it, but I thought it was an interesting point.
She did not flee prosecution. She was told, and witnesses for her were told, there was no prosecution. There was no warrant for her arrest. That it was perfectly fine. And the state knows this. That an investigator told a family friend, there's no warrant. They can travel.
That's part of the evidence that's in the record, or you're just making argument generally about this?
I'm making argument generally at this point, Judge, but the state knows it. If they're going to claim that she was actually fleeing, they know better. They know that their own office said it was okay for her to travel.
I really liked the way the attorney handled that right there, because she just acknowledged, yeah, I'm just arguing. I'm just making argument. I don't have any evidence. I'm not going to present any evidence. I really like that she just up front said that to the court. But she then goes on to say, but the state knows it. And then they don't get up and contradict her, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know exactly what the circumstances are, but it does seem to me like that's a pretty important point. If the state is going to be allowed to use the evidence of her going to Vietnam, I think they probably need to flesh out whether or not there was some kind of communication from the state to Donna Adelson saying it's okay for you to do that. Roundabout, though, it sounds like it was from an investigator to a family friend to Donna. So it isn't like the prosecutor picked up the phone and gave Donna a call and said, go for it. It's totally fine. That didn't happen. So Donna, in the course of this hearing, said, I'll be happy to agree to very stringent conditions for release. And there was a strong argument here by the attorney.
She's not supposed to be punished yet, right? She hasn't been convicted of anything. When you take not one of these things, but all of these things together, she doesn't stand a chance of being actually ready to testify for trial. That cannot take place under the conditions that she's facing. She's in extreme pain. She's not getting any sleep. Her diet is garbage. It's just not going to happen, Judge. And you know, if we were asking for something lenient, I could see the state's opposition, but we're not. We're asking for you to hold her outside of the jail in the most stringent conditions she could possibly be monitored, just to allow her to be with her attorneys, get her doctor's appointments, and get ready for the trial that her entire life depends upon.
All right, so we will pull that out now and go for just straight talking to y'all about what happened. So the arguments that the state made were, you know, she's getting plenty of medical care. Whenever there's a need that the jail itself can't meet, they send somebody out for a referral to a physician who can handle it. Most things can be handled internally, and at no point have we felt like she had a medical necessity to go out and get additional medical care. We think we provided enough. And in fact, they argued that turnaround is faster than people out of custody would experience. She can get in to see a doctor faster than you or I can. So the jail says we just aren't seeing any hearing loss, hearing loss, whatever. They gave her albuterol for her shortness of breath. They x-rayed her shoulder, thought it was only mild pain, etc. So at this point, today at the hearing, the court reserved ruling on both of these issues. So there's nothing that the judge has actually said this is what I'm going to do yet. We're waiting to find out. I'll give you my prediction for that in just a second. I want to say thank you to a few people. First of all, Nana of 7 has been a member for 9 months and says it's a sad situation, and she is absolutely right. It is absolutely pitiful on multiple levels for many people. So Asian Posh Doreen has been a member for 6 months and says the same thing, and justice for Dan Markel. I didn't even give an explanation for the case. I just plunged right in. My apologies. I assume all of you watching have already know about the case, but I definitely should have given a little explanation. Dan Markel was killed in his driveway, and the person who killed him, the 2 hitmen who killed him, were, according to the state, and now an actual jury verdict against her, hired by Katie Medbanawa, who was in turn asked to do this for hire by Charlie Adelson, who is Donna Adelson's son. So that's the roundabout way. Donna Adelson was the person who most wanted this done, according to the state. That's why she's on trial here. They believe she more or less ordered the hit through her son, Charlie. Jackie P has gifted 5 lawyer lead memberships. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate that. We had so much fun this weekend on Saturday. We wrote a true crime short story together. We're going to actually publish that as a video. You can see what we did and what we wrote. It was awesome. First of all, it was a ton of fun. It was really a lot of fun. And then it also turned out great. I think you'll love reading or hearing this. I'll read it and we'll do it as a video. So that'll be coming very soon. And you can join by hitting the join button beside the name of the channel right below this video. Although if you're on your iPhone, you're going to have to actually go into your browser. You can't use the app. Some kind of dispute between Apple and YouTube, I think. So in any event, that's what's going to be, that's how you can join. And we'd love to have you as a member. Okay, so that was Jackie P. Mary Ramsey. I'm so glad you like the explanations. Thank you for saying that. I try to make it as clear as possible so that people can understand these cases. I know everybody wants to follow them, but sometimes it can get kind of confusing. Thank you, Not Your Edits. I appreciate that as well. And I will stop there and go over and look for some question marks at the beginning of your question. That'll be how I can kind of spot it in the chat. And while I do that, while I'm looking for the first questions that come in, I want to talk a little bit about kind of my thinking about what I think the likely rulings will be and how, if I were king of the world, how I would rule on these. My conclusion is that in this case, bond is absolutely hopeless. I cannot imagine them giving her bond. Her medical conditions are not all that severe. The jail conditions are what you would expect anyone to experience. And she tried to flee. At least that's the state's perspective. And may I say, 91% of you agree and didn't buy her explanation. So if they had put on evidence that the prosecution office actually passed down the word to her that it was okay to leave, that might be different. But I think as it is, the judge is just not going to be able to do that. It's not too much longer to trial. I just don't think he's going to give her that. But in any event, I did think her lawyer did a great job putting it together. As for the phone calls, I actually agree with Donna Adelson on that. I feel like the jail, once the call between the 2 people disconnected and Charlie was no longer on the line, that I do feel like the recording should stop at that point. So that would be my personal thought about it. They had no warrant, no reason to continue. So that would be my thinking of that. Okay, so I am looking for question marks in the chat over here. So Annie K wants to know about what would be a comparison between Donna Adelson's motions to any other inmates, especially aging ones. And does this seem beyond the norm of what prisoners use in motions? I think this seems a lot less than what most people would use. Now, she's already been denied bond. So she's trying to get this. And they argued that her new attorneys had never requested it before. So this is their first attempt to get it. It's not unusual to ask for it more than once. But in this particular case, I don't see any reason for a change in what their decision originally was. So that's why I don't think anything is all that unusual. She didn't seem to express really strong medical needs to be out. And so that's my thought. Mia, I can't read that, but Irish Twins mom, if she's released on bond and returns to court for trial, looking like her pampered self, won't that hurt her with the jury? Seems there would be sympathy if she looks like she does now. I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I think that she has two issues. Probably she would feel like I used to look a lot better than I do. And I don't know which of us doesn't want to present a healthy and nice looking image. So I think there's that. But I think too, the preparation for trial is her best argument on that. And the idea that only if she's rested and sort of living a normal life can she do successfully prepare for trial. So that's where I think she's going to argue it. But I see your point. She definitely looks older by a lot. She looks a lot less healthy. And so I think that might, some people might say that would be an influence with the jury. Beth asks, her inability to prepare for trial is based on supposed physical issues. Could the court order an independent medical eval to assess the validity of her claims? I would think that the court could do that. I don't think that would be something that would happen here because there isn't really the only claim she really has, she has a shoulder and an x-ray, it wasn't broken. So there's nothing really there. The biggest issue, I think, relates to the breathing. And her attorney said, look, I don't know maybe her x-ray didn't show something on the lungs, but something's up. And so I think that would be one issue that the attorney would say maybe an independent medical eval would help. And the sleep issue, maybe. I think overall, though, this isn't a heavy medical case. This isn't like where she believes she has cancer and the people in the prison don't think she does. They're all pretty close. What level of hearing loss she has, it's just sort of subjective. So I doubt they would do that in this particular case. I don't think there'd be a reason for that here. All right. Scar, Motley, and me, do those extradited really stay in foreign jails for long periods of time? That is hilarious. Scar, Motley, and me is saying that 2 Kane Corsi get walked while I listen, and they now go to the door when I say time for Lawyer Lee. I am very honored. I am very honored to hear about about how they think that they associate Lawyer Lee with getting a walk. I think that's pretty good. They're probably doing better than I am on exercise too. So that's pretty good. I love that. So I don't know the answer to that as to whether or not they would stay in foreign jails for long periods of time. I don't know if that's something they just made up. I mean, it's possible. I listened to that and thought, well, maybe. I would think they would only stay in jail long enough to arrange for their extradition back and maybe to allow for any appeal that would be from the person who says, I don't want to be extradited. So that would be something that would be somewhat in the control of the person themselves. But I don't know the answer to that. Patty asked, what was the result of today? We're waiting to find out. I'm giving my thoughts on what the judge will do, but we don't know yet what the judge will do. Bon asked, do you think her complaining will hurt her at trial? It seems she has greater concerns about her trial. The trial is the all important issue here. And I don't think that the jury will hear this sort of narrative. They're not going to hear a lot about what's happening to her in prison because it's not relevant. So I think what they'll hear is, or what's happening to her at the detention center. I think instead they'll hear more specifically things that related to her, to the alleged crime itself. They will hear about her being at the airport if the judge allows that in. I think that it's very likely they'll hear her explanation, the same one you heard tonight, maybe slightly different at trial, which is part of the reason why I thought that was so important for you to hear as well. All right. So, Cat Artist, thank you for simplifying. Thank you. That is what my entire aim. So I appreciate it. Oh, we've got some new members. Oh, that's great. Mary Ramsey and Faith Louise and Lorena, all new members. Fantastic. We are so glad to have you. And Idiot Wind helping with gifting 10 Lawyer Lee memberships. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate that very much. And Mama Pinks has been a member for 12 months. Mama Pinks is one of our mods. She has been with me from the beginning. Our other mods, Marlon and Denise Pelton, they do an amazing job. We are so fortunate to have them. And she is putting in the dates, the jury selection, June 3rd for Donna Adelson, opening statements on or before Monday, June 9th. And that is correct. And there are upcoming dates too, where she's going to have case management conference or she's going to have the pretrial. So those will also be coming up. Those will be big days. We will be getting for the next month, probably a good number of things will get filed. We'll see a lot of motions coming in. It'll get really heated up as we move rapidly toward trial. All right, going to head back over here. Idiot Win, if you have every reason to believe the call has ended and the warning only says the call is monitored. See, that's why I read that to you. Exactly. Don't you have a reasonable expectation of privacy due to that? In a free world, one person hangs up and the call ends. And that's my view. The warning about the recording was related to when you have the call. Now, you could argue that in the real world, it is true that if one person hangs up, the call ends, but sometimes if you don't hit the button, things will continue. I'm sure we've all had hot mic moments at some time. So that is a circumstance that can happen in the real world. I'm not sure exactly how it happens, but where somehow you end up on that hot mic. So we will just wait and see what the court says about that. My view would be that probably she did have an expectation that the call ended, and therefore it wouldn't be recorded unless she was on a call with the inmate. She was no longer on a call with the inmate. So that's kind of my read of it. All right. Last couple of questions. Donna said to the police officer in the car at the airport that she was under the belief that there was no warrant. Would that be evidence to prove her story? Asked Kayleen Iskey. Yes, it would. It would. That would be something I think would be, or is it Kayleen Iskey? That's probably what it is. So anyway, would that be evidence to prove her story? I think it would be, but I think it probably would not be played at trial because she'll be there to testify herself, and she'll, at least if she chooses to, she will testify herself that she believed that there was no warrant for her arrest, and in fact there wasn't a warrant for her arrest. So I think that fact will come in. I think there was no warrant for her arrest at that point. They got a warrant and executed it at the airport. Catherine wants to know, do you think they will make sure her medical care improves? I wish I could say yes, but I honestly am not sure that will be the case. Prison medical care is really appalling. It is really bad. Not to say maybe that we do so much better in the country as a whole, but it is true that for Donna Adelson, it will probably be maybe a little better, but not necessarily. So we will be playing our special outro tonight, prepared by our own mod, Marlon. We hit 30 million views last week. So he gave us a special outro. Here you go.